Summer Wednesday get together here on Birds 365. You got John McMullen Jody McDonald, Mac and Mac with the Providence kid, Mike Gill. When did you get your big backside up to Providence?
Probably 2018. I did Brown and Providence in a weekend. It was in Newport, Rhode Island. Took a drive up to Providence, walked the campus, went over to Brown. And, did a little Newport, Rhode Island, Providence trip one
How
summer.
far between Brown and Providence?
Same 5 minutes. I mean, it's a couple.
They're close.
They're both right in. They're both in the city in Providence.
Nice. The smarter kids. I'm surprised you didn't go with Brown over Providence.
The brown shirt is a little young on me now.
All right, there we go.
Okay, you grew out of that one, huh? Yeah, one size down. Okay, we got you there. You look good in your.
I don't want to insult the Providence kids, but I mean,
you just did. What do you mean you don't want to insult? You already did.
Brown
not the
is
Brown
Ivy.
kids. They know they're not the Brown kids. Come on,
Brown is Ivy League. So
right.
I mean, come on.
We did the whole weekend. That's when last week. I think I had the Yale shirt on. Last week I went to New Haven, drove up to Newport, and then Providence is about an hour from Newport. So we went up and hit that. Came back to Newport has a baseball league up there, the Sunset League. They play in this stadium. It's like the third oldest operating stadium in the country.
Really? Still
pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about baseball. You didn't get over to the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Isn't that the sponsor of Providence?
You know what?
I love that. Anytime an arena is named after a fast food product, count me in.
Yeah, but they just changed it, Jody. They changed it. I used to love it. It used to be the Providence Civic Center in, before all that nonsense started. And then they called it the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Now it's something else, though. I got to look it up.
They sold down?
Damn it. Now it's the Amica Mutual Pavilion.
Really?
Like, who cares? Dunkin' Donuts Center at least had some zest to it. Now it's the Amica Mutual Pavilion. That's
like the Steelers. They had Heinz Field for all those years, and now it's some insurance company that no one even knows how to pronounce. And it's like, you can't pronounce the name of your company. Is it really beneficial to be the name of the
that's
stadium?
good. That's bad branding. Good point, Mike. That is bad branding. If you can't pronounce the title of your company, maybe rebrand that thing. I would agree with that.
I think I dated a girl named Amika once, but that was a long time ago, so we're not even going to go there. All right, Mr. Gill, Eagles are 33 days away from camp. So far, no issues, no problems, no off-field antic, nothing that is going to deter opening day of camp and the like. But we know what the expectations are for the Eagles. You check the gambling website. You check the prediction websites. A lot of people have the Eagles as the best team in the NFC. Some have the best team overall. For the newbies, the guys who weren't here last year, they're just getting their feet wet in the NFL. How much difference is it for the Philadelphia Eagles coming into this year than last year or the year before that? Because expectations are higher than they've been since 2018 after they won the 2017 Super Bowl.
Jody, I think it's a great question to think about because you're going to have minimally, 5 or 6 guys on the defensive side of the ball getting a lot of playing time. Not to mention, you have a new coordinator running that room. You have a new coordinator on the offensive side of the ball running that room. This isn't one of those situations where there's like 1 or 2 guys that are coming in and you're like, hey, we did, if it was just Isaac Seumalo and just Javon Hargrave, we'd be talking a lot about, who's going to replace Hargrave? Who's going to replace Seumalo? It's almost a fait accompli that those positions are going to be taken care of because there's so many other questions. Who's going to take over the linebacker? Who's going to be the safeties? The running back situation, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw the over-under on the yards for Mr. Penny and Mr. Swift yesterday, but those were definitely worth mentioning and getting into if you want. But, yeah, I definitely think that there's got to be a lot of long and hard conversations going on about how are they going to replace all of the production that they lost. I was looking yesterday, I was putting a promo together for our sales team to get them all juiced up to sell the Eagles this year, and I'm going through one game of highlights from Merrill Reese calls, and they're all labeled of what the call is. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson sack, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson interception, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I said, man, it's a lot of stuff Chauncey Gardner-Johnson did in one game. And then I looked at another game, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson interception. That guy's gone. TJ Edwards, tackle behind line of scrimmage. TJ Edwards, stuff at the line of scrimmage. Well, that guy's gone. There's a lot of guys who you just don't even they're under the radar players that are gone that you need to replace. So a lot of concern on getting this team to have that same mentality with all these new guys.
Yeah, Jody and I were just talking while you're in the green room about our top 25, our annual top 25 list that Ed Kratz and I put together. And Jody's doing his own list, and we both had linebackers at 24. Ed's fault for Nicholas Morrow. Jody had Christian Ellis. Boy, man, you talked about glossing things over. This is getting glossed over because the more I think about this, maybe it's the lull, in between OTAs and training camp. So you have to think about these things. PFF came out with their linebacker rankings. Eagles are 31 out of 32.
Yeah.
31 out of a 30. So Peter King saying, can't find a weakness. There it is, Peter. There it is. 31 of 32. I believe only the Rams were behind them. And interestingly, number 2, the Chicago Bears. Why are the Chicago Bears number 2? Because they spent money on linebackers. One of them is a guy you just mentioned, TJ Edwards. There was a commenter yesterday, I happened to notice it, saying, he doesn't pass the eye test. What the hell is the eye test? If you're watching TJ Edwards play last season and you watched insert name, Eric Wilson, LJ Fort, Paul Worrell, Nate Gary, the famed Nate Gary. What is the eye test telling you that TJ Edwards can't play, in the assumption that Nicholas Morrow is going to replace a TJ Edwards, or even Nakobe Dean, to be fair, is going to play up to the level as a first-time starter that TJ Edwards played last year? Boy, that position is got a chance to derail this season, but I think Jody's right. I think the second linebacker's not even here yet. I can't believe they're going to line up.
Yeah. Well, that
Nicholas
was
Morrow, Christian Ellis.
I think it was Jody asked me about that last week. Who's the other linebacker? I said he's not here yet, but you remember back to some, the defense the year before, Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards. When Edwards had just kind of been finding his way, but Singleton was the best linebacker on the team statistically, and that's not good. I mean, this is a team that
it'd be good now. I'd love to have Alex back. Now,
right.
I agree there's some limitations, but he'd be a big upgrade right now.
Yeah, and I
Alex
think
Singleton.
you saw last year where this defense did, the linebackers, they didn't make the splash plays. They're not like Levante David and these guys who were all over the place making plays. But what you didn't hear was how much of an issue they were. They just solidly did their jobs. They basically, did what was asked of them. And you didn't go, like, there were weeks when you had the Nate Gearys of the world and the Alex Singletons where you would come in on a Monday and you'd be like, that team looked at film and said, where's 47? Find him on the field and let's exploit him. They didn't do that last year because those guys could at least do their job. Can these guys just be, solid, not spectacular? I think Dean would be more of a spectacular player in the end if he's cut out for it. If he's not, he might have some problems. Now, if he's the player we think he is, you're probably going to get a really good player. But if he's not the player we think he is, you might get a guy who's lost out there doing pirouettes in the middle of the field looking for coverage, but I don't think that's going to be the guy. Now, how important does that make the second guy? Does that make that second guy have to be, at the same level? Can he be an Alex Singleton? Can he just be a mid-level tackle machine? Would that be suffice? And is that guy on this roster?
No, last year that guy was Kaiser White, and he was pretty darn good, at least as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And,
White he was solid.
Yep. And by the way, John doesn't pass the eye test. You know what eye test TJ Edwards didn't pass? His timing in the 40 at the combine. That's the only eye test. You got to look at the stopwatch.
Boy, I get it again. It's, in the comments, he's mid-tier. What are people watching?
Well, he didn't get paid mid-tier.
No. I mean, boy, if that's your expectation, that TJ Edwards last season is mid-tier, you're going to be awfully disappointed at the linebacker.
Well, yeah, what are they going to be this year?
Oh, my Lord, you're going to be
proof
disappointed.
is in the pudding. He gets a contract to go to Chicago, and, you just talked about where Chicago sits in the rank. If Nick Morrow is there and TJ Edwards is here, what do those rankings look like?
Well, they did get Edmonds as well, so that's
right.
part of it. But, they'd be, down probably 13, 14, somewhere mid-range. He's a big part of it. Edmonds is a very good player as well. So they went in a different direction. Most of the league is devaluing the position. The Bears went out.
Well, that's the thing. What is Sean Desai going to ask his linebackers to do?
Well, here's the thing. You guys both believe, and I'm with you, that the second linebacker isn't here yet. Now, if I were to force you, say you can't get anybody else. Jody wants Patrick Queen, you can't have him. Mike, I don't know who you want, but you can't have him. So you got to play with who you have right now. If that's the case, I'm playing three safeties. I'm playing Terrell Edmonds at linebacker in obvious passing downs, and hoping I can get Sidney Brown up to speed along with Reed Blankenship. That's what I would do. You could go Christian Ellis, you can go Nicholas Morrow. What would you guys do?
With the current roster that I have now?
Can't go outside the organization. Got to play with what you have.
I would imagine that Ellis and Morrow will battle it out in camp, and the winner of the, who the coach feels more comfortable. And I guess, again, it goes back to what does Desai look for his linebackers? Does he want versatility? Does he just want a guy that can go in there? He's going to have, if he's running a 5-man front with Jordan Davis on the nose and Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter, does he want a guy who just a sure tackler who can go in there, make stops? I mean, that's kind of what Alex Singleton was for this team. He was just a guy who see the ball, tackle. He couldn't cover, right? I mean, he was smallish. But if that's what they're looking for from a guy like Morrow, off-ball linebacker, just go and make tackles, then okay. But I would imagine that they will let that play out July 25th. You two guys, may the best man win. Good luck.
Here's the reason why I think that Nicholas Morrow could end up being a non-factor. I've had this hammered into my line of thinking by my partner, John McMullen, and he's dead on right. How much of Nicholas Morrow's contract was guaranteed, John? Well,
zero, not one red penny. And remember, there are 31 other teams. So he was out there. And this is the deal he took. Now, plenty of guys have outperformed their contracts.
Yep.
I'm not saying he can't be better. But the contracts don't tell you everything, but they tell you a lot.
They give you a big hint.
Yes.
And the fact that Nicholas Morrow got zero guaranteed was a pretty big hint for me, and that's why I think they're going to do what they have to upgrade at that position, and it'll start in 33 days. All right, Johnny, Mikey, you brought this up. The Eagles over-unders on their running backs. I did not see this out there. Don't know what wagering website you were referring to. But what order did they have the 3 running backs in where you saw it?
I got the 2. We talked about this yesterday. So Rashad Penny's over-under for yardage, rushing yards, was over-under 600.
I would lean toward under. Not that I don't think he's going to be good, but I just don't. You can't bank on the guy staying healthy.
Yeah, I'm in a weird spot with Rashad Penny because there wasn't a lot of buzz about him this spring. Not that the spring is not that important, but I just get the feeling he's in the back of the mind of the coaching staff. So, they never talk about him. Whereas Swift is more in the front of their mind. Nick Sirianni keeps bringing up Trey Sermon out of left field. He's not even being asked about the guy. He keeps bringing him up. And then you have Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. If Rashad Penny's part of the rotation, I'm going over. My question is he going to be part of the rotation? I don't know.
The interesting number here, last year Sanders ran for about 1,200, a little over 1,200 yards. So the number for DeAndre Swift is 579 over under, which means Penny and Swift combined are right about 1,200 yards. They have those two guys going. So Swift rushing yards, 579.
If I'm taking over on one of the two, it's going to be Swift, not Penny.
Yeah, same here. But from Swift, I get why the number is where it is. I mean, he's never, I think as high as 613 or somewhere, or maybe 631. It might be somewhere in the low 600s. So I get why they placed the number there. And a lot of it has to do with health. He's, missed 4 games a year, basically. If he's healthy, he's going way over that number. And he seems to be, he's the leader in the clubhouse, in my opinion, to be the lead back, so to speak. So,
well, that's if you look at these numbers, it would essentially say that Vegas thinks they're going to split carries and rotate guys, that they would not have a lead back, and they would get the same production from 2 guys as they got from the one guy last year. I mean, I think Sanders had 1,260 plus yards, and he had 11 touchdowns as well. So you're going to have somebody be able to find the end zone. But those 2 guys there, if you put them together, they get 1,200 yards. I guess you did your job.
Did the site you looked at have Kenny Gainwell listed at all?
You know what? I did not look at the site. These were sent to me. We did a segment yesterday on these. I got passing yards for Jalen Hurts, 3,599 yards passing for Jalen Hurts.
It was 3,700 last year, so why would you go under? I think you got to go over on that one, too. But I'm intrigued by the Kenny Gainwell number because he was 240 last year, and now isn't a given number one in front of him.
The numbers I got yesterday were for most passing yards, most receiving yards, most rushing yards. So most rushing yards, Jonathan Taylor is the leader. Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, all the obvious ones at the top. DeAndre Swift is the only Eagles running back with odds for being the rushing leader. He is way down the list at 66-1. Jalen Hurts is above him at 50-1.
Oh, sure. I believe that.
50-1. Jalen Hurts, 66-1. DeAndre Swift. No other Eagles running back is on the list for rushing yardage leader, nor should they, but they should be way down the list. But Penny's weird to me because I think if Penny is healthy and he's the best running back, just from a pure physical talent trait standpoint, and we've all seen it. I mean, when the guy's on the field, he's never on the field, but when he's on the field, he runs the football.
Let me ask you this, John. Are Penny's injuries freak accidents, or is he an injury-prone guy? Like, when I look at an injury-prone guy, it's the hamstring, the muscle pulls where he just can't get over them. Last year, I think he broke his leg. Like, that's something like you can't get. So is he perpetually injured because he's injury-prone, or are these just freak accidents that just happen to him? And does that even matter to you?
Yeah, it is, because you would think, the worm turns, so to speak, if you're talking about luck. There was a torn ACL in there. What can you do? I mean, it's a torn ACL. So I hear what you're saying in that last year's mentioned broken leg. These are significant injuries. This isn't the guy sitting out. See, I think DeAndre Swift is more. DeAndre Swift he played 13 games every year in Detroit. 13. It's a decent number, but he's not near 16 or 17. You know, he's missing 2 or 3 games with a hamstring or this or that. Yeah, I think torn ACL is a little bit different. Look at Landon Dickerson in college, granted. Torn ACL. Had 2 of them. All of a sudden he comes here. That's the big concern. That's why he was a second-round pick. He's played every game. It's only 2 years. So, yeah, I'm with you. Sometimes the worm turns and you get a little bit of better injury luck as opposed to the guy sitting out for the soft tissue injury.
Yeah, the soft tissue. And if he's healthy, man, my man averaged 6 yards a carry behind that Seattle offensive line. What would he do behind this line? Because he is a difference-making type of back with his size and speed.
Yeah, I'm on the exact opposite side of both of you two guys. Plain and simple, add up the numbers as far as I'm concerned. Penny, 5 season, 14 games, 10 games, 3 games, 10 games, 5 games. That's not 13. Guess what? I'll take DeAndre Swift in his 13 games every single year. You're not missing him for a half a season, 3/4 of a season.
But that's what the Eagles are sort of doing with Rashad Penny, sort of betting on luck. They don't like to say that term, but that's what they're saying. All right, ACL, broken leg. I mean, at some point, the worm's got to turn, as I said.
Well, if Swift plays 13 games, Penny gets the other 4. It's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, I don't know if you want him for just 4. You know, I think it'd be, you know, gets hurt here with a significant injury. I think it's one of those things where you say, all right, you know, it's a small bet. You know, you got 600 grand.
600,000, right?
Yeah,
not a lot. And you know, this room, you look at the PFF. They ranked the running backs. I think yesterday, the Eagles running backs were 22nd in the league. Well, Carolina was behind them. So they're saying that this group of running backs is better than what you had a year ago. So one of those 2 guys or both of them share the load. And then, Jody, you know, I agree with you. How do they mix in the other guy? I mean, Scott, it doesn't seem like they care if he has a defined role. He seemingly is break, glass in case.
I can give you his defined role. Score touchdowns against the Giants. That's all he has to do. He's there for 2 games a year. He always scores touchdowns against the Giants. He's going to get the Giants. He can basically take the first 3 months of the season off because they don't play the Giants till late in the year. Boston take over for the 2 Giant games. Put up 3 touchdowns. Done. Thank you very much.
It just seems that, he doesn't have a role during the course of the season unless someone gets hurt. And then when someone gets hurt, he seemingly they go to him before they change someone else's role. You guys are staying in the same role. Boston's role is going to become a little different. So you have the 2 guys that they signed plus Gainwell. John, you mentioned Sermon. Does he have a role, or is he a guy that's kind of battling for I don't know. Is he and Penny battling for a spot? Do they look at Penny and just say, something's not right here? He's not past the injuries, and we stick with Sermon? Do they keep both of them? I mean, to me, that is one of the more fascinating watches. And then the other part about what the running backs, do you want to run Penny in a preseason game if he's been hurt so much and risk him getting hurt in a preseason game? Do you even battle for the position?
Yeah, I mean, this is one I can't get a beat on. I really can't because we're only there for 100 minutes, as I mentioned. Like if you were to ask me, I'd say 100% Swift is going to be on this team. 100% Gainwell's going to be on this team. Boston, probably 95%.
Boston makes more money than everybody else.
Yeah.
But that could be one of the reasons he gets cut.
Rashad Penny, I'm 50-50. Trey Sermon, I'm less than 50-50, even with all the Nick Sirianni talk. And I can't even tell you why. It's just there's no buzz about the guy.
And there's just no role.
Nobody's talking about him.
Here's the Trey Sermon question I have for you, John, and you're down there all the time. They kept him on the roster all year last year. After he got scooped up from San Francisco, they never tried to sneak him down to the practice squad. He was one of the inactives every single week. We're a year now more removed from him being in San Francisco and being part of the Eagles bench. You think they'll put him through waivers and try and get him to the practice squad?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they don't, I mean, if he's not going to make the team, they're not concerned about putting him on waivers. And if he clears waivers, they'll put him on the practice squad. If he doesn't, they'll say, all right, sayonara. I mean, if he's not good enough to be on that 53, I don't think it cares. I don't think it's going to be a strategy sort of, oh, we can get this player through waivers, but we can't get this player through waivers, or that's the belief. The Eagles played that game with Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata wasn't ready as a rookie to be on the 53-man roster, but they didn't want to expose him to the rest of the league because you don't know if somebody is going to say, all right, let me mold this piece of clay. And they just stuck him on the back end of the roster for 2 years. Basically, they didn't do anything. They tried the other route with Brett Toth, as if you remember Brett, he went to Army, so he was in that before they changed the rule, and he was literally the first player where Donald Trump was president and said, all right, these guys can play football, and they changed the rule. He had already lost 40 pounds because he was doing his Army work. And so the Eagles were like, well, we think he's got a lot of potential, but he's got to, sit and gain weight, got to get in the weight room, all that kind of stuff, build his body back up. We can get him through waivers. We'll put him on the practice squad. Arizona snapped him up. Ultimately came back. So it worked out in the end, but it's always a gamble. But if Trey Sermon doesn't make the 53, I don't think they'll have any problems. They'll just say, all right, if we get him back, we get him back. If we don't, we don't.
Mike, I want your position on this because John and I discussed it yesterday and a couple of stories out there over the last couple of days. The NFL and its handling of legalized wagering. They've suspended five or nine. Was it how many Lions? They got a couple Lions. They have put out some pretty good season suspensions for some guys. Lions turn around and cut them. Williams, their star second-year wide receiver, is going to miss half a season, 8 games. This isn't a 2-game slap on the wrist. The smallest suspension has been half a season, 8 games. So the NFL is taking this very seriously. They, I believe, compromised themselves to take in the millions, if not billions of dollars that gambling affords them in partnerships and sponsorships and the like. But they want to keep at least an above the fray look to the way that they're handling gambling. NFL doing this right? Are they doing it wrong? Is it being handled well or being handled sloppily? What's your take on the way the NFL? I know they continue to send out info through sources. We mean this. We're going to have all these resources for the players. They can't be doing this. We're going to be harsh with it. NFL handling it right or wrong?
I mean, is there a right or wrong way to do it when you're in bed with the gambling apps?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're taking all this money from the gambling apps. I mean, on a Sunday, you can't go to a commercial without seeing everyone crossing your face. And then you're telling the players, well, you can't engage in that. But it's almost like the college kids. We can make money off of you, but you can't make any money. We can take money off the gambling apps, but you can't prosper or even utilize them. So I don't even know how you approach telling these guys, we're allowed to use them, but you can't. I mean, is this one of those situations? Maybe I don't know if this is accurate. I would imagine so. Like if you work for the team, you're a lady in the finance department. Is she allowed to gamble? Because, for instance,
not on site, I would guess that these rules that they're putting to the players adhere to every single person who's a member of the organization, an
right.
employee of
Well,
the
like, for
organization.
instance, if you work for a casino, you can't gamble in the casino. You're not allowed. Like if you were working finance at Caesars or Ocean, let's say Ocean Casino, you can't gamble at Ocean Casino. Now you can go down the street and gamble at another parlor if you want.
Right.
Is this a similar station in the NFL where you're saying you can utilize the app, you just can't do it here? I mean,
and you can't do it on your sport. You can go out into the parking lot and bet whatever the hell you want in the NBA,
right.
But you can't be doing
by
NFL.
the way, you can't do it. You can't do it in the parking lot either. You got to be
no parking lot.
Parking lot is still considered property.
Obviously, nobody is advocating letting them gamble on their own league. Their own league, but to then tell them, but it's okay if you want to go gamble on other leagues, you're just opening up the opportunity to let them gamble on their own league. I mean, it's all or nothing, right? It's got to be an all or nothing proposition.
This is where John and I disagree, so I guess you and I disagree as well. It's not that hard to figure out what you can and can't bet. You can't bet on the NFL. You can bet on the NBA. If you're an NBA, why can't you expect a young man, and I know some of them are only 21 years old, to be able to figure that out? That to me is not advanced mathematics. That isn't asking too much for them to be able to figure out, okay, I can bet on this, but I can't bet on that.
I agree with what you're saying in principle, but it's a perception thing. It's much like, I said the other day, like John Morant, for instance, he didn't break a law. He's not in trouble with the law, but it's a perception thing. If your league is saying we do not want that perception, it's obvious that the punishment of 8 games was not enough because he did it again. Now you're doing 25 games. And the thought is, well, he can't win MVP. He can't get he's losing. You have to say, no, it's all or nothing. If you do that, you're losing the whole season. So in this instance, the perception by the fans is, well, if they're gambling on basketball, they're probably gambling in other aspects as well.
Well, now here's my problem, Mike. And I have 2 problems. You brought up the hypocrisy part of it, which I think is fairly obvious. But the fly by the seat of the pants nature of all this, they're suspending guys, as Jody mentioned, whatever the number is. I don't know the exact number, 6, 8, whatever. Last year was Calvin Ridley. So it's been going on for over a year, 16 months, whatever. Yesterday, they had a conference call with reporters to discuss the league's gambling policy and education. Yesterday, they've already suspended all these players. How does information get out there? They give it to reporters. They give it to people like me. That was the first time they discussed this policy.
Yeah.
And the 6 key rules are: don't bet on the NFL, don't gamble at a team facility while traveling for a road game or staying at a team hotel, don't have someone bet for you, don't share inside information, don't enter a sports book during the NFL playing season, don't play daily fantasy football. Those are the 6 sort of bullet points they gave us.
And you play yearly fantasy football.
It says daily.
Yeah.
Don't play daily fantasy football.
Yes. That is one that I'm kind of not being able to figure out. Either you can or can't bet on the NFL. Or if you're playing fantasy football, you're betting on the NFL. Why they're allowing them to play year-long fantasy football, I don't understand. That's a legit question.
To me, this is the Sam's Club. If I get a bite of the sample, I'm probably going to buy the sample. If you let me use the app, I'm going to start perusing through and saying, oh, I can put some money on Kenny Gainwell yardage. I know Kenny's going to get 10 carries today. You're just putting too much of a temptation for a league that already has a perception problem in terms of there's yahoos out there that think the games are fixed.
Yeah.
So you're allowing
the script. The script.
Illuminati. I got my tinfoil hat on over here. Yeah. That. And to say, well, it's okay if you walk off the property and place a bet on a basketball game, but you can't do a football game on the property. Like,
by the way, they did. You can't bet on anything, any NFL events, NFL draft, combine, Pro Bowl, flag events, NFL honors. They mentioned that for you, Jody. Don't bet on anything at the team's facility or stadium, including the parking lots on team road trip, team plane.
I thought once you got out the door, you
No.
were good.
There was
hotel.
a report the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday or Monday, but there was a report that a player lost $8 million in gambling.
Yeah.
This past season, $8 million gambling. Now, some of this is like you're trying to protect these guys from themselves, and is it up to the league to say, well, we don't want our players gambling on basketball or baseball or hockey or college football? You let it bet on college football, a guy who might be your teammate down the line.
Here's where I am. Don't gamble. Period.
Right. But the players, they're not going there because they don't want to be the anti-gambling league either, because then somebody's partners who are paying millions of dollars are going, wait a minute, we're partners here, and you're like putting out this message that gambling can't be had, can't be thought. No, they're not going to do that. That's why they're trying to walk this fine line. And I want to just quickly address it. Someone put it on the comment section. Are they pinging their phones? The answer is yes. Oh, they're in partnership with these betting outlets, and they're giving them the names of players who sign up, and they're geotagging them so they know they do it in the parking lot.
Right.
If they do it in the parking lot. Oh, yeah, that's how these guys are getting caught, by the use of their phones.
Yeah, everybody who has a gambling app should know. I live on the Jersey side, and if I'm using a certain app and I'm on the Walt Whitman trying to go to a game, once I get to a certain point on that bridge, I can no longer – they know exactly where I'm at.
Yes, sir.
Right? They know exactly where I'm going, so they know exactly whose phone is now. Could they do it on somebody else? Could somebody else? Absolutely. Sure. Like, hey, Jody Mack, man, do me a favor. Put in a bet for me, would you?
Oh, yeah. Here's what I'm thinking. Burner phones. I'm betting you there's a percentage. We could ask Peter King this, whatever guy you want. Percentage of NFL players that have betting burner phones.
Yeah, well, that's how Brian Colangelo.
That's not a zero. I can guarantee you right now it's not a zero.
That's how Brian Colangelo's earning a living now. His new burner phone is putting bets in for NFL players.
Nice. At Mike Gill Show. Make sure you listen to Mike every weekday, 2 to 6 down the shore, 93.7 The Sports Bash. Does a tremendous job. With us. Yeah, the hypocrisy of this stuff is ugly. I don't know how you fix it, because you want to take the money from these people and you want to limit everybody's. And I understand you have to limit. You can't have people, as you mentioned, Mike. Guys know the game plan, so they can take advantage of it if they want to win some money, especially with these prop bets. If hey, this is going to be a heavy, as you mentioned, Kenny Gainwell week, and the over-under is 25 yards. You got inside information. It is a sticky situation, and the NFL, as usual, wants people not to pay attention to it, basically.
Yep.
Just suspend guys and don't pay attention.
Do yourself a favor. If you see Mike Gill down the shore today in his Providence shirt, and you just got there because your kids are out of school and you're going to be down there for the next 7 months, say hi to Mike. He loves the fact that you're down the beach with him. So make sure you tell Mike you're glad to see him, and you guys will be hanging for the next several months down the shore.
I got out of here last weekend. Too many people, man. I got out of here.
Yeah, man.
He doesn't like sharing this beach, but
count down to Labor Day, my friend. Count down to Labor Day.
Oh, we only got 33 days to go to Eagle Camp. You got a hell of a lot longer to get to Labor Day, Gil. Good luck with that. Enjoy your time down the shore. Mike, always a pleasure. Thanks, bud.
See you guys.
Mr. Thanks, Providence, Mike Gill here with us on Birch 365. All right, we've got guest number 2 coming up, and shoot, now only 13 minutes from now. We took Mike
too long. Sorry about that, Mike.
That's all right. Well, he's going to go out and see people that he doesn't want to be around anyway. So we weren't like holding a gun to his head. Nor will we hold a gun to Derek Gunn's head. Get it? Hold a gun, Derek Gunn. D Gunn going to join us coming up in about 13 minutes from now here on Birds 365.